All right, check it out. Leadership isn't about charging in with all the answers. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is shut our fucking mouths. Yeah, here we all sit. Here we sit in a world that glorifies, that quick decision making and that constant action.
Yeah.
However, I'm sure you've seen it, Will. I'm sure we've all seen it. We've all felt it. The best leaders understand that patience truly is a virtue, and we can be that can be a freaking superpower. That patience, right?
Yeah.
And today we're going to get into that. We're going to get into why slowing down, taking a moment to observe, waiting sometimes can actually make you not just a better leader, but a more grounded and more effective human being. So, without trying your patience much more, we're going to get into the show.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. Yeah, hey, thanks for being here, everybody. Let's, say, we're going to dive into patience in a second. So thank you for being patient as you wait for learning about patience. But hey, just to let you know what's going on at Men Talking Mindfulness, we're really excited about something that's going to happen throughout the year. John is on a fitness journey that he is looking to get in better shape, and he has really challenged himself and held himself accountable by actually going. We're gonna be documenting his journey all year with monthly episodes, and it's going to end in him getting on stage and entering and being part of a physique competition in Denver in I think it's August 19th, right?
August 9th.
So, on the August 9th. Okay. Yeah. Your birthday is the 19th.
August
that's right.
19th
Okay.
is my birthday.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So, so we're going to be documenting that. So we already released our first January episode. We'll be doing monthly episodes, like I mentioned, but also we're going to do in order to capture the excitement. And if you want to get on your own fitness journey, we actually already bought tickets and we're hosting a Spartan race team in Dallas on October 19th this year. So if you want to be part of that, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. We have more meditation courses that are coming up in April. So if you want to be part of that, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. You want to become a sponsor of the show, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. If you don't like to use if you don't like to use URL, you can simply text MTM to 33777. And it's a great way to get in touch with us as well. All right, John, let's find some patience, right? And this would be a great tool, guys. Anytime you need a little patience, John's already breathing, right? You got it right. Ding, ding, ding. One breath grounding practice. Exhale out completely. Feel that breath leaving your body. Feel yourself like bringing yourself into this moment by finding your breath. Take a big, giant breath in. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe top it up into your head. And let that go out nice and slow and easy. Fantastic. Without rushing into the show, we just want to say, hey, thank you all for being here, for tuning in, sharing our podcast, helping us grow and become more mindful. John, let's do patience, man.
That's right. Well, I wanted to start with a metaphor that a friend of mine recently told me, and he's a retired fire chief, and he said that when he became the chief, just before he became the chief, somebody told him, hey, don't go in and be the rock causing all sorts of ripples. And what he meant was, if you can imagine somebody picking up this fairly decent sized rock and they throw it into a very calm lake, a lake that is steady and is going well, everything's going well in this lake. And you take this rock and you throw it into the lake. And what does it do? It makes a big splash, and there's ripples that affect the rest of the surface. I mean, that lake, even as smooth as it could be as smooth as glass. These ripples are going to go all the way across the lake and affect everybody that's affected by this lake, right?
Yeah.
And he said, the better way to be is to come in with your mouth fucking shut, like I started the show, right? And you take this rock and you gently place it in the lake and try to put it in as gently as you can so that it negatively, or rather, I don't even want to use the word negatively, but it affects the lake as little as possible, at least for the first part, right? Yeah. There's something to be said about practicing patience as a leader, coming in, keeping your mouth shut for a while, observing, taking in more through your eyes and your ears than putting out through your mouth. So I wanted to start with that metaphor. And we're going to get into another metaphor later about like trying to be like a tree with some deep roots. But let's start with that definition, right? We got away. We were using a definition to kind of start our show off regularly in the past, and we've kind of gotten away from it. But
it
I
depends what
felt
we're
it was,
talking about. You know what I mean?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, right.
But I thought this would be a good one to have a definition to start out, because a lot of people, they think they understand what patience is, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So it's defined as the ability to endure difficult circumstances, right? And those difficult circumstances could be, I mean, you think about, like, I've got 3 young kids. Their difficult circumstances are waiting until after dinner to get dessert, right? They want the dessert first thing. I'm like, no, kids, you got to eat your vegetables. You got to eat some protein before you have some ice cream. And that for them at their age is a difficult circumstance, which is definitely a first world problem. But it's again, the ability to endure those difficult circumstances, the delays, the challenges, without becoming annoyed, upset, or reactive. And that's a part that I can struggle with. I'll try not to outwardly display that being upset, but on the inside, sometimes when my timeline isn't met, then I do become annoyed inside. But this is where patience, we're going to talk about it, but I'm not saying that I'm a master of it by any means. I try to practice it. But anyway, coming back again to the definition, it involves maintaining calmness, self-control, and perseverance in the face of adversity or tedious situations. So, Will, you want to go through some of those aspects that you pulled out?
It definitely sounds like a mindfulness practice to me, John.
Yeah, right. And I know you've told me before, in visiting me, and you've seen the chaos that is in my house, and you're like, man, you're an incredibly patient father. And I'm like, oh, brother, if you only knew the turmoil that is inside.
Right. Exactly. So. I mean, it's such, patience is just, it's such a beautiful practice. I mean, that you can, I mean, it's not easy, like we're kind of talking about here. That's why we're giving a whole episode to this, but it's definitely worth trying to find a little bit more, because it's going to bring the best parts out of you for sure. Because one of the things that patience is going to do, it's going to help to slow you down. You're not going to be reactive. You're going to be responsive. And how many times we talked about that on the show,
right.
And so it's like, but it's also just getting to calm is going to, it's not like patience is going to be naturally there, because patience is more of that self-led, that heartfelt experience. Whereas like when we're continually in the mind, and the mind is just always trying to go faster, always trying to like think of the next thing, always like trying to find a problem in order that is feeding your impatience, whereas like if you're calm, cool, connected, just taking those many breaths, maybe several minutes of breath just to get to calm, patience is going to come online. And then what we're going to help you do what I'll help you understand today is how to express patience and what patience could look like, particularly in leadership. So whether you're at the office, whether you're in your family, like I'm going away this weekend, John, to a family winter weekend, and they're going to test the fuck out of my patience. You know what I mean?
Family has a way of doing that.
Oh, exactly. And and what do I do? Like you said, I just keep what I've learned, I keep my fucking mouth shut most of the time, because when I open it, it causes problems. I'm like, I could become the stone. I just throw stones everywhere. It's like, let's go fucking break some shit. And go create a lot of ripples. And then I'm dealing with the aftermath, feeling like a piece of shit. Like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? You know what I mean? It's like, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all it takes sometimes. So just some key aspects. It's like, enduring difficulty, patience is the capacity to persist through long-term challenges or setbacks, losing composure, without losing composure or giving up. Right. Another thing here, that composure piece, right? We talk about poise, we talk about composure. It's like, where do you really find that? You find that by practicing mindfulness, practicing meditation, and practicing your patience. Tolerance and restraint is another aspect of this. It includes the ability to tolerate provocative, annoyance or delays without responding with anger or frustration. Emotional regulation, we've already been talking about that here. Patience requires staying calm and composed in the face of stress, enables enabling, thoughtful responses rather than impulsive reactions. You want to do these last two, John, or
Yeah, well, I
yeah,
just want to. You probably saw me nodding on the
yeah, yeah.
thoughtful responses rather than impulsive reactions.
There you
Again, the
go.
reaction versus response.
Yeah.
Um, Man, I've been going to therapy. I believe in therapy. Whether you're feeling a challenge or not, you should always be working to maintain your mental health. And I've recently been going to therapy with one of our previous guests. She's been on twice, Jay Fields. She is incredible, by the way. I mean, she was an incredible guest on the show, but holy cow, her ability to do some therapy. And funny enough, we met yesterday, and she did some internal family systems stuff with me. Yeah, and we talked about my 7-year-old self. That is one of the family members that we've actually gone through in the past. Like it is in the family members inside my brain, inside myself. For those of you who are not familiar with the internal family systems, and then I've got myself, right, my current 47-year-old grown man, and then I've got this warrior that is called like the patient or loyal soldier. And this loyal soldier wants to defend this little 7-year-old self. And sometimes that defense can look like anger, rage, or fury. And that can be, and that can be expressed by me, the 47-year-old grown ass man. And that is the opposite of those thoughtful responses, right? I can have this impulsive reaction to fight or to defend the 7-year-old self. And sometimes that comes out in my relationship with my wife. Sometimes it comes out with relationships with my children. I get angry at them. It's a impulsive reaction without that thoughtful response. So anyway, bottom line is that emotional regulation, that patience can help with that emotional regulation. And so that you can have those thoughtful, not just responses, but thoughtful conversations, thoughtful leadership moments. So anyway, the next two aspects that we have is acceptance without complaint. So many of us are when we struggle with our patience, we complain. One example recently, and again, this is my impatience. My plan, I fly to Dallas every week for 2 weeks at a time now, and a lot of the time I do work on those flights early in the morning. Monday morning, it's like 5:30 a.m. and I plan on doing work on my computer on the flight. And this last week, they said, hey, there's something with our Wi-Fi. We're not going to be able to have Wi-Fi. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to be able to do the work that I planned on doing. And talk about first world problems, right? I'm sitting at 30,000 feet in an aircraft that's traveling at some unknown speed and I'm traveling from Colorado Springs to Dallas. And here I am getting angry about the fact that I don't have Wi-Fi at 30,000 feet. And I was complaining. So it would have been better for me just to accept that and be like, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to sit in silence and do some reflecting, do some journaling, maybe do some sleeping. I mean, it's freaking early in the morning. So that's what I did. After complaining, I was like, oh man, let me take a step back here. And then long-term perspective, right? Yeah. That involves the focus on the long-term goals. And that, man, I saw that come into play big time in SEAL training, right? In SEAL training, there's one week called Hell Week. It's literally hell for, well, I guess not literally hell, but I guess figuratively hell.
Human hell.
It's a human
hell on
hell
earth for humans,
for 5 days where
yeah.
you're just getting physically trained, physically remediated, basically punished for a week nonstop, and you get 3 hours
just
of
for
sleep
showing up.
Yeah, and that's one of the stepping stones to becoming a SEAL.
Yeah,
but so many people quit in that week. We started that week with 108 people, 108 men, and we finished with 24.
Just in 5 days. Wow.
Yeah, in 5 days. So what? Wow. 70. I'm missing my math, 74 or something like that. And I hate math in public, but anyway, it's not being able to see that long-term goal, right? Their initial thing is, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. Oh my gosh, I'm so cold. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Right. In this moment right here, even though they have a long-term goal of becoming a SEAL, getting onto the battlefield, being a special operator, they get so wrapped up in the moment that they lose the outcome. They lose their desired outcome. They don't recognize that there's a meaningful progress to get there, and it takes time, right? Or sorry, a meaningful process to get there. So those are some of the key aspects for patience. And I can't remember if this is in our notes or not, but one of the famous scientific examples of patience, or to test patience, I'm sure you've seen it, Will.
Oh yeah,
is with the little kids. And they give them a marshmallow, right?
Marshmallows,
and for those of you who are not familiar, I'm just going to explain it. I'm sure most of you are, but they have a secret video camera set up in this room, and they tell the kid, "Hey, here's a marshmallow," and then the adult walks out and he says, "Hey, if you can not eat this marshmallow in the 5 minutes that I'm gone, I'll give you another marshmallow when I come back. Otherwise, no marshmallow, no additional marshmallow." And man, you can see these kids like struggling in all sorts of ways, like physically struggling. You see them, some of them just grab that marshmallow and eat it real quick. Some of them wait and they get that second marshmallow, and they follow these children for years. And it showed that the children that did not eat that marshmallow had a much greater ability to not complain. They were by societal standards, they were much more successful. Now, it's funny, I can't remember which book it is by Stephen Kotler, whether it's Stealing Fire or The Art of the Impossible. He actually goes back and flips that whole thing on its head. And he says, well, yes, those people that didn't eat the marshmallow were the most patient, but the ones who did eat the marshmallow had the most fun in their lives, which was fun, funny way of looking at it. Yeah. But anyway, that long-term vision, right, is okay. Well, I can wait 5 minutes and I get 2 marshmallows, or I can eat it right now and get that instant gratification. Right. And that's where we're going to get into a lot of that instant gratification. So many of us talk about, hey, yeah, I want to be on a diet. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to, I want to start to run. But then they're like, oh, well, there's a candy bar right here. That instant gratification completely nullifies that long-term perspective, that long-term goal.
Yeah, we're in that resolution time too. You know, and a lot of people, when they turn this, have probably bagged on their resolutions already. A lot of that is, it's like the lack of patience, the lack of the long-term goal, the lack of something, actually probably a deeper internal commitment to that goal, I think can actually help drive more patience. Like, we see so many, like I forget what the numbers are or the percentages are of podcasts that just, they don't have the patience to stick it out. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, we've gotten to this place, John, because we have each other, but there's a lot of patience involved when we're just like, things aren't moving, numbers aren't going. Like, we're like, what the fuck are we doing? It's like, is anyone listening? And it's just like, and it just takes literally just one email, one message, we're like, oh, people love us. And we keep going. You know what I mean? But like, we've really made some strides in what we're doing here because of patience. Like, it just, anytime, anything that you want to do that is bigger than you are now, and that is, it takes a lot of work, is going to require a lot of patience. There is no instant gratification. Yeah. And if you're trying to look at those stories like, oh, I'll be discovered someday, or it's just going to happen for me, I'm like, I'm sorry. That's not, that's just not going to work. And if you want to do anything great, patience is you're going to have to exercise patience, find patience, and understand what it means to be patient. And also what patience does, when I'm finding more of that patience and exercising more of that patience, living more patience, and also attaching to those aspects of enduring and looking in the long term, I get to realize what an incredible, powerful asset patience is. Right. Whether it's I'm in a conversation, whether, working on a goal. So it's such an incredible gift. And it's like in that internal family system, and their aspiration to uncover like the true self, like part of that self and being self-led, patience is built into our DNA. It's there. Like I said earlier, we just we got to tap into it. And so let's get into let's do some villains there, John. Yeah. So let's get in the way of our patience.
Right.
So
what's getting in the way? Yeah. Well, I think as a leader, there's always this pressure, to act quickly. Right. There's even sayings that support it. A poor plan executed quickly is better than a perfect plan executed slowly or something to that effect.
Mm,
But when things don't have to happen quickly, when you're not on the battlefield and you don't need to get
mm,
from one point to the next without being shot or something, right? There's not always this pressure to act quickly, but sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves.
mm.
And I've seen it in some of the organizations that I've worked with in the past. They are trying to undo a toxic culture, because what did they do? Well, they were short on manning. They were struggling because they had so much to do, and so they were like, oh well, the solution is to hire, 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 and
Right.
so they hire quickly, right? They're like, okay, well, let's interview some folks and get them on board, and then because of that, they hire toxic people that end up causing a toxic culture, and they do the reverse of what's often preached within the hiring space. The hiring um, process, it's talked about, hire slow, fire fast. So
Right.
you want
Yeah.
to take the time, you want to be patient in hiring
Right.
people,
Right.
so that you hire the right people, with the right capabilities. But capabilities are one thing. Capabilities can be taught, but it's also their attitude, their
Yeah.
words that they use, how they show up, their work ethic.
Yeah.
And if you're hiring just based on capabilities, quite often you're going to hire the wrong folks, and it's going to be detrimental. So that
Mm,
that can be where the societal pressure is there to act quickly. And maybe I'm talking about a mini society in this particular instance,
mm.
a society within a business. But I've seen that, and acting quickly in that instance, um,
Yeah.
didn't pan out well.
Yeah.
So you got anything like that?
No, no, I'm just thinking like what you're talking about here. It's like, to really be like, how about highly driven but patient? Like that's a killer combination. You want to get
Yeah,
stuff done, but like you understand that patience are required in order to, gain those perspectives we talked about earlier, and that
right.
come
And
naturally with patience.
and
I mean,
and
that's the
with
team I want.
patience,
Those are the people I want to be with.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And with patience, that the more you practice patience, I think the better the outcome. When you have
Yeah.
the ability, when you're afforded the ability to practice patience, the better the outcome. Whether it's in that example that I just talked about,
Yeah.
hiring slow or firing fast, or people want the quick money, right? They're like, oh well, I'm
Oh,
going to try
yeah.
to I'm going to play the lottery to win $1 billion.
Right. Right.
It's been shown that some of the most unhappy people on the planet are people who win the lottery,
Mm,
because there's a difference in earned money versus money given. And when you are given money, you don't understand the value of it, and
right.
you end up spending it quickly, or you just feel unhappy, right? You end up having this baseline that you come back to for maybe the first week or maybe the first year or however long. You feel elated. You're like, oh man, I'm a billionaire, I'm a millionaire. And then suddenly you're naturally going to come back down. And
Yeah.
anything that's ever worth a damn takes time and effort. If you're out trying to win a championship and you cheat,
Yeah.
that's looking for the quick solution. And
Right.
when you cheat,
Yeah.
you're undermining that joy that you would feel
Yeah.
from actually winning. So that is a demonstration of impatience.
Yeah.
Um,
What?
so I think it's, again, looking for that immediate gratification, that we beat ourselves up and undermine our own sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
But
I
again, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, if you really have a team, if you really want to have a team and really, uh, uh, experience what a team can be, it's gonna take time for a team. It's gonna take patience to develop a team, but also for that team to come together. You know what I mean? It's like if you're always just driving for the end result. And one thing that, I think that we take the humanity out of ourselves when we're always just, it's like transactional. It's like, I got to get shit done, got to get shit done. So it's just like, well, you're the thing, you're like the machine that can get things done for me in this problem. And you just, I think what's a big part of what we're talking about here is we're losing our humanity. We're losing the fact that, when we are feeling pressured and we're all, making very quick decisions, it's just like, that's not the way things work. You know what I mean? You're dealing with human beings, and human beings are complicated. Like every day is different. Every personality is different. Sometimes they gel, sometimes they don't gel. Sometimes there is that time, that patience required in order to find that, the cohesiveness and the gelling between them. And it just, I think when we continually like look at and see the another human being over there, right? That has all the struggles and challenges, similar to ours, a little bit different, but overall, like, they're very similar. It's like, I think we begin to, we be, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just heartening, John, to me, that, like, there's so much objectification that comes in when we are just so incredibly transactional, and just like, everything's got to be done quick and immediate. And you just don't get the best results. And then you're just like wasting time and repeating yourself over and over again.
Oh
You
yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that. I've seen it. I've done it. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I have too, for
yeah,
sure.
I'm sure everybody has.
Right.
Everybody listening, I'm sure. Um, that said, I want to, come to how we're going to tie this into leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just tied it kind of into a somewhat administrative role is hiring and firing.
Mm.
But why do you feel, Will,
Yeah.
that people who make quick decisions and act quickly, why that is often equated to leadership, and why in this context and how we're discussing it is actually wrong?
Well, I think there's, because, like, I guess people in those positions, people in those situations, that, and the people that are following these leaders, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's what comes up for me is like, they're just, they're like seemingly decisive. They're like, they're dominant, or like they're just like, they're taking the power and just using their power as a leader
Mm-hmm.
in order to make decisions. And, and if you're working with a team or working with people that are, people that, aren't necessarily, checking that leader in the sense of, like, hey, or it depends what kind of team you have, John. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like if you have a team that is highly collaborative, that moves forward together, right, and sometimes needs to sit back and wait, like, you're going to be really effective. But if you have a team of people that, or you hire, if you're a leader that is always like, I'm always right, I'm never wrong, like, you're going to hire people that are just going to be, yes, absolutely, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And it's like,
Bunch of
and they're going to be,
sycophants.
yeah, right, exactly. And they're just going to be looking for that person to just make those decisions, and then just go around cleaning up their mess anyway. And
Yeah.
it's just very, very ineffective. And I don't know. For me, like, I don't see that as leadership. I think that actually, that's, we talked years ago, boss versus leader. That's like boss shit. This is
Yeah.
not leadership. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. I
that's
think
just
it's
being a boss. You know what I
a
mean?
lot of
It's
it, I think, is driven by fear,
oh,
right?
completely.
Fear well, fear of inaction, one, but also fear of being viewed as weak.
No, completely. Yeah. Right.
They leaders who aren't patient, or who don't practice patience when there is time afforded to practice patience.
Yeah.
I think they pride themselves on making these quick decisions, but often those quick decisions are going to be flawed.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that it's often done out of fear,
Yeah.
and the need to justify that validate themselves, validate their role, validate their
Mm.
title,
Yeah.
by making those quick decisions. And I think in a lot of corporations, a lot of organizations, there's very little tolerance for slow, strategic decision making. Even again, when there is time, when there is an opportunity to be patient, a lot of organizations don't practice that. So it's not just the leaders within the
Right.
organization; it's the organization as a whole. It's a culture
Yeah.
of
Right. Right.
little patience or impatience.
Yeah.
So for the leaders out there,
Mm.
for the members of an organization, I don't just mean leaders because of your title and your rank.
Mm.
I mean the leaders out there that could be, middle of the pack as far as rank and title. I think a leader is not because of your rank and title. It's because of how you act. It's because of what you do.
Right.
For those listening, if you can sense that there's impatience from your higher ups, or you can sense that there's impatience within the organization, this conversation is for you. And
Yeah.
we want to help you to instill patience, not just in yourself, not just in your fellow leaders, the rest of your team, but the organization as a whole. I think that's important.
Yeah, well, and as at a leadership position, your employees are modeling what you're doing. And
Right.
if you're quick to, if you're I wouldn't say decisive is not the word. If you're just like impulsively making decisions because feel like I just got to do something right now because I'm under pressure, like I don't know. It's just not real. It's not good leadership. Like I don't know. It really fucks with things because like
Oh yeah.
really what we're talking about here is like, what's going on internally. If you're impatient, like I'd imagine there's a lot of cortisol, adrenaline online. You're in
Oh yeah.
you're in your primitive brain, and you just feel like you got to just do stuff in order to protect your ass, like you're talking about, in order to fulfill your, commitment of your role, in order to,
Right.
just like show other people that, I'm making a decision, I'm a leader, even though it might not be the right decision to make. It just seems it's a lot of selfishness built in to the impatience that comes with, just not like taking a grander view and sitting back, getting some perspective, understanding the long-term goals, right? And understand the responsibility that you have as a leader in order to move this organization forward.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've talked about that villain number one, if you
Yeah.
will, that
Yeah.
the
The
pressure
obstacle.
for
Yeah.
those
Right.
immediate results, right? So what about even without that pressure? Villain
Yeah.
number two is impatience as a default reaction.
Mm.
Um, so I found this in myself again.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
certainly not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So I've seen impatience show up in my leadership. I mean, even in discussions, I find myself, I'm like, hey, in my mind, I'm like, I want this discussion to be over with, and I want to be able to continue doing things. I don't want to just discuss, and I'll find myself interrupting people during the meeting with the intent of speeding things up, but sometimes that very act actually slows things down. Now the message isn't getting across
Mm.
because I'm interrupting.
Mm.
Sometimes I don't delegate appropriately,
Mm.
so I'm not trusting my people. So I'm micromanaging. I'm getting down in the weeds and
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to rush them through something to meet a deadline that doesn't even exist. It's kind of in my head. I want things to move fast. I want things to move fast.
Mm.
And in doing that, again, not only do I potentially slow down the process, but I'm undermining the trust that I'm trying to build from my
Yeah.
team in me.
Yeah.
And that is definitely impatience.
Yeah.
And then again, when things don't go according to my timeline,
Right.
I get frustrated. That impatience shows through,
Mm.
and what does that cause? It causes fear, anxiety in my
Mm.
team of
Yeah.
me as a
Right.
leader.
Right.
So that impatience can definitely undermine me as a leader. So if I'm better at practicing it, those three examples, right?
Mm.
I'm no longer interrupting, so the patience comes into play with the meetings, and the meetings are more
Right. Yeah. The
effective.
communication.
The
You know what I mean?
communication is
Right.
improved,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
The micromanaging isn't there, so that maybe because I'm not in the weeds, it's actually they're able to move faster. And then
Right.
when
Right.
I'm not, and my trust, their
And you're not
trust in me.
hovering either. Microman, you're
Yeah.
not
Oh
hovering.
yeah,
You know what
not
I
hovering.
mean? Like,
Right.
yeah. When's that done? What the fuck?
Right,
I'm like, shut
exactly.
up.
And then the trust is maintained, or maybe even built upon
Yeah.
the trust that they have in me. And then the frustration isn't there, or at least not with me, right? And
Right.
and then the people that I'm working for, and I say people that I am working for because as a leader, I feel that I'm working for my people.
Mm.
They don't have this angst that's built up because of something I did,
Right.
right? So I think that's where
Yeah.
I've seen that impatience is that default reaction come into play.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess a question that comes up for me is like, why is faster better?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, why is I mean, I live here. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. We have a saying in the SEAL teams:
Right.
"Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast."
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just to make a little metaphor for that, like, or just an example, an allegory. Is that right? I live in the city, and they changed the traffic in the city quite a bit. Like, but before they changed, like the avenues in Manhattan, like the speed limit on the fucking avenue is like 45 miles an hour, right? And they have the lights timed nicely, so you can literally cruise like like 20, 30, 40 blocks sometimes if you catch the lights right.
Yeah,
You
if
know,
you're doing the speed limit
and I
properly.
know you've seen like other people in other cities and stuff like that. Like they race to the next stop, like, and they're just like,
Makes
and
no
they just sit
sense.
there, right? And then you pull up next to them, and you just, they're racing at 45. You're just going 15, 20. Because
Yeah.
the light. You're seeing the big picture. You're
Yeah.
seeing their perspective out in head. We're like, oh, I can, why do I got to go faster? We're all going to stop at the same fucking light. You know what I mean? And then next light comes like boom, or they go really fast, and you're just like, so it's like, why faster isn't better? Like, what if you just, hit a nice little cruise control,
Mm-hmm.
20, 15 miles an hour? That's what the city is now. Like, I guarantee everybody in the city gets to their destination almost exactly at the same time, right? With the speed limit now at 25 miles an hour, right? Versus the city having different miles per
Mm-hmm.
hour per road.
Yeah.
Right. Because it just doesn't, like, when you're in a congested area or you have many moving parts, it's like, it's not all about you.
And it's
Right.
dangerous.
It's dangerous too.
Yeah.
And you're like putting others at risk. Like if you're driving really fast, like,
Yeah.
there's a higher probability of getting in some sort of accident. Right.
Right.
Whereas like if you're just taking your time, taking in that grander perspective, just slowing the fuck down. Right. And realizing you're going to get there.
Right.
Right. I mean, at the same destination, that car that sped ahead of you, it's like, it just takes, I think there's a lot of maturity that comes into this. Like when I'm saying
100%.
that, when I'm
100%.
saying that, when I'm saying that, like, I remember I was a fucking, 19, 20, 25-year-old driver. And I was like, I got a car. I want to go fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was kind of, that was
It's
part
also
of
that
fun.
testosterone.
The testosterone thing, like going like nuts. You know what I mean? And probably whatever fucking sugar I was eating or whatever I was doing, you know what I mean? But it's just like, chill out. You know what I mean? Like chill. And it's like, and I tell you what, like the people and the leaders that you respect the most are the calmest people in the room, are the ones that you're the most patient, that express the most patience, like by far.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right.
One of my last bosses in the Navy was so impatient and quite frankly immature as well.
Right.
And
I think they'd go hand in hand almost.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Right. Yeah.
But man, this guy, he was so impatient, and it would cause all this anxiety within the team, and it not only caused anxiety, but it demotivated us. We're like, I don't even want to work for this guy.
Yeah.
So I've definitely felt that. And then another anecdote, similar to your red light one. I remember when I used to live in Tampa, and I lived almost right outside the base. And for any of you who ever pulled up to a military base, there's a military gate, and you have to show your identification. And normally there's somewhat of a line there. And I'm waiting at my road, which I had to take a right turn onto this bigger road, and it was like 200 yards to the gate, right? So I'm on my road taking a right, and it's 200 yards. I see this car coming, but they're like, I don't know, 100 yards away from me. So I pull out, but I'm driving slow because the gate is there. And I know that I'm going to have to get my ID out. And this woman pulled up on my ass, drove around me on a double yellow line, drove around me, opened up her window, and she's like flipping me off. And I'm like, what? Are we racing to the gate? And she passes me and then immediately slams her brakes on to wait in line. I'm like, that was worth your time. That was worth amping up your anxiety, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Your anxiety too is like, is this woman crazy? She's getting in an like, it's like, like
honestly, I had to laugh. My anxiety did not spike.
Right.
I just laughed at her. I'm like, okay.
But I mean, some people just like, I think that's part of the humanity aspect, that when you are calm, are poised, are composed, that you realize that person might just be having a bad day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's part of like, that's part of good leadership here. It's like, hey, I'm getting a lot of this, that pressure, or, people are really coming at me. It's like, hey, can I stay composed? Can I stay calm? And it's like, and that's what we practice, or that's why these practices are so important. Let's, what about, can you think of a time that you caused unnecessary conflict in your life or team because of your impatience? You know what I mean? Like,
oh man, I'm sure I could think of many. I've pushed for results, on projects, and because I pushed so hard, those projects ended up having multiple mistakes, and because they had multiple mistakes, we had to do it again. Right? There's a saying, do something right or do it again.
Right,
Well, we
right,
had to do
right,
it
right.
again and again and again. Um, a big one is where the it causes conflict in my family.
Mm,
My kids, specifically as a dad, and having been a former naval officer, there's this desire to get things met by my timeline.
yeah,
And I'll be waking up. I mean, hell, it happened this morning, Will.
yeah.
This very morning,
I know.
which is why I was late to our first
I was
meeting.
like, "Where's fucking John,
Yeah,
man?"
I
I'm
was
just kidding.
10
I'm just
minutes
kidding.
late, and
I
and
know
then
that it
Will
is
got all
funny.
impatient with me. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
I
kidding.
know.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
He practiced
inside,
great.
internally.
He
No, no,
practiced great patience with me.
no. Good. Okay.
And so my kids who are young, I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, who weren't putting their shoes on. I'm like, put your shoes on. So I have this mantra. I'm like, hey, kids, I'm going to ask you something. And then if you don't do it, then I'm going to tell you something. And then if you don't do it, I'm going to make you do it. And my kids know it. They they recite that mantra back to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, kids, will you please put your shoes on? None of them do it. I'm like, hey, kids, put your shoes on. None of them do it. So then I grab the shoes and I walk over and I put them in front of them and I start putting them on, starting with my 3-year-old, moving up to my 5-year-old. By the time I get to my 7-year-old, she's finally got them on. And they're like, why are you so angry? I'm like, because I asked you and then I had to tell you, and now I'm making you. And now my patience is being tried because they didn't meet my timeline.
Right.
And now they're upset. They're upset at me being upset. So it's caused this unnecessary conflict.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I need to enable them and just go over and put their shoes on all calmly. They need to learn some lessons, right? They need to learn
Yeah.
to hurry up if they need to. But I'm just using that as an example of me losing my temper when somebody didn't meet my timeline, and then my losing my temper. And I mean, I didn't fly off the handle, but you could definitely tell that my voice had been raised a little bit.
Yeah.
And that caused unnecessary conflict.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly that's within my family, but that happens
Yeah.
in a professional setting too.
Here's a great example of the ripple effect of that, John. And I'm not picking on this at all,
Oh,
but like,
go for it.
so like I'm in this meeting today, and it was a big meeting for us. Like we're growing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're like we have we have our own organization, what we're doing, Men Talking Mindfulness. Plus we got the Valor Media working with now. Plus we have a production company. We're having like our first team meeting.
And our social media guy.
And our social media guy. So it's like we're all in there. I'm like, whew, all right, this is a big meeting. It's the first time we're doing this. And John is like, I'm in the meeting and I screwed up. I didn't like put the link in the fucking calendar and shit. But but I sent an email out really quick to everybody. Hey, just use this link. And then everybody within seconds started popping on. And I'm in the meeting like 5 minutes and I'm like trying to quarterback this thing. And and I said, and I was like, John's like, hey, could you send me the link? And I have like no time. I'm like talking or whatever I'm doing. And I was like, it's in the email. And like, I check later and John's like, I could feel your impatience.
Dude.
He's like, I got like 1,000 emails.
Dude,
You just
for
sent
some
me
reason,
the
I opened
link.
up my email and there was 195 emails. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? So now my patience is tried with my kids. My patience is tried with my email inbox. And then you're telling me, check your email. I'm like, motherfucker.
I know. I was not trying to be a dick. I was like, dude, like, I'm like, I got too much shit going on right now. Like, just check your email. It's there. I promise you. Everyone check the email.
Yeah.
And then John even comes on. I mean, this is the ripple effect of impatience. Like, it just stays with us. I didn't know if you were going to show up. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on with John. I just got to keep more info. John pops on. He says hello. He's like, and he still has this fury inside of him with the impatience. He's like, this bullshit.
I didn't say that.
No, I mean, it just,
but I'm sure you could read it from my energy.
You did say something about like, some bullshit or whatever. I was like, and I was like, all good. That's just a moment in time. I think that's one thing we need to realize. Like, why go fucking up the rest of the team, just because of what's going on inside of you. And I'm not, you didn't do that, John. No, yeah. I mean, and you didn't fuck up the team at all. Like I had you, I got the whole, it was all working together because I think I was being patient too. Even in that moment, I was like, there's a lot going on here, and what's nice about being patient, especially in this team meeting today, it's just like, I can listen, like, but also it's like, I'm not trying to rush to a certain answer, a certain this, a certain that, right? Which gets other people anxious. Like that ripple effect is real.
Mhm.
And but if you can stay calm, even if John or somebody's coming in a little hot, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but if you stay cool, the rest of the temperature of the room will come down.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you are amplified, if you're being impatient, everything, if
Yeah.
depending on who you are, maybe in a leader, other people are going to amp up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I mean, I did it. I
yeah,
did it this morning, but I've also been on the other side of that coin where I've been, in a
yes,
meeting and we've been doing things really effectively, and then
yeah,
somebody with very low patience comes in and
right,
like
right.
you, even before they say anything, you can pick up on the energy. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Let's move on to villain number 3, right? So in our 3-act play, we got several villains identified here, and villain
Yeah,
number
these
3 is
motherfuckers, dude. These fucking villains. Right? I love talking about these
we're
villains.
gonna get banned from YouTube because how many times we used the F bomb in this particular episode?
I no, right. Oh, did we? Oh boy.
No, I'm
Okay,
kidding.
who
I'm
knows? Right?
kidding.
Yeah.
So anyhow, the villain number 3 is misconceptions about patients, right?
Yeah.
And some of those misconceptions, or I'll name one of them,
Yeah.
is that patience is weakness.
Oh my gosh.
And we've talked about this kind of tangentially already, but it's taking time to make a decision, or taking time when somebody else is, maybe you've tasked something out and your team is working on something, and then you have a higher up saying, "Hey, John, have you gotten this done?" I'm like, "Well, my team is working on it." And then that boss tells me, "Hey, well, you're being weak because you're not checking on them." Well,
Oh, jeez.
patience isn't my lack of confidence. It isn't my indecisiveness. It's my trusting my team to get it done at the speed that they're going to get it done. Unless I've given them a timeline,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
getting it done, right?
Right.
Um, the next side is that the world, I mean, everybody's moving a bajillion miles an hour, right?
Mm.
Everybody, every single day. And with that, I think that the world is rewarding quick action and speed, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then, and then I think people confuse taking time for something to be done as inaction, and that inaction
Oh.
is, well, one, that inaction could actually be you practicing patience.
Yeah. I was
Be
going to say, it sounds like
deliberate,
an impatient person
yeah,
judging a patient person.
right, exactly. So that patience is being deliberately practiced for strategic reasons,
Yeah.
or tactical reasons, or operational reasons, whatever.
It's effective.
Yeah, it's effective. It
Patience is
can be.
very, very effective tool.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
And yeah, I mean, isn't it funny? Like, just like vulnerability, just like authenticity, or like definitely vulnerability is seen as weak, where these are our superpower. Patience. You just become more of a patient and vulnerable person. Life is going to change for you dramatically.
Oh yeah,
And it's going to require, you'll see, if you want to be patient and you want to be vulnerable, how much power, energy it takes to be those things.
right.
Like, I mean, it's
But also what you get back for them.
oh,
Right. There's
the
the return on
ROI
investment
is
is huge.
fucking
Like, I mean,
super
like
huge.
just my anxiety level, once I got into that meeting and I started to
Yeah.
settle down, my anxiety level was way lower. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay.
Well,
And
you
I'm
got
sure,
your
and I'm sure you could feel it.
Oh, you got your
Right.
head on straight. That's when John came in. It's like, and I just John's presence showed up like within the other half of Men Talking Moms. And I even said, I was like, he asked a question. I was like, "John, you're reading my mind again."
Oh yeah. I
And
remember
you just dove right in, and I was like, that's exactly where I was going next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Beautiful.
you had already figured it out,
But-
because also you slowed down, and
I could
your
think
better
more
self
clearly.
came out there. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's so many,
It happened.
the ROIs on those is just, and we're going to get into the payoff a little bit more here shortly, but
yeah.
let's talk about some of the examples of patient leaders, man. So I'm from South Africa, born in Cape Town, South Africa. As a fifth grader, sixth grader, I knew who Nelson Mandela was, when a lot of my classmates didn't. And Nelson Mandela was imprisoned because of his fighting for equity and freedom for blacks in South Africa. I mean, for
apartheid.
Against apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
In some respects, Nelson Mandela was the Martin Luther King of South Africa.
Yeah.
But rather than being assassinated like MLK, he was imprisoned by the government. And he was imprisoned for 27 years. And then when he was let out, I want to say 89, 90, 91, something like that, which is bad that I don't know that off the top of my head. But when he was let out, he actually became the president of South Africa. And he emerged, I mean, prior to his being in jail, that he actually did kind of promote violence. But then after that 27 years of reflection, and I'm not saying that we all need to take 27 years in prison to reflect, but he came out with incredible patience, and his mentality toward fighting for what was right was not with violence. And he had this very determined vision for unifying South Africa. Now, certainly things have happened since then that have caused more turmoil there, but that he as a leader was, to me, a prime example of a leader practicing patience. I can't think of many more that have practiced more patience than he did. So
especially
that's one that jumps to my mind.
Yeah, being in a small, little jail cell like that. And there's also, I forget, there's a quote that he had on the wall or read every day or something like that, that when he was in there, that actually, I believe, you probably want to Google it out there.
Yeah,
anybody's listening.
I'm going to look at it real quick while you're talking.
Beautiful. I mean, we talked Abraham Lincoln, his patience as opposing, the viewpoints helped, the Civil War. I mean, like, talk about, I mean, think about, like, as a president in like this very tumultuous time in a country, everybody's looking for you. And instead of being quick and impulsive and impatient and making bad decisions, as a great leader, Abraham, who is considered the greatest president of the United States, and why is it so great? Because of his patience. I have some good quotes here, John, too, that I thought would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, let me come back real quick to the poem.
There you go.
That Nelson Mandela
it's
read.
Beautiful, dude.
It's the poem Invictus.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Oh,
yeah.
It's so fucking good.
So, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Yeah.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I mean, hell, we could just stop the show right there. That's patience.
Yeah, that's patience. I mean, here's some quotes from some great leaders. Like Benjamin Franklin says, he that can have patience can have what he will. Benjamin Franklin. Neil Tolstoy. The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Mahatma Gandhi, right? Who's like nonviolent, king, right? To lose patience is to lose the battle. I mean, to lose patience is to lose the battle. It's like, and Napoleon Hill, who had a massive effect on my life.
Yeah.
His patience, persistence,
and Rich Dad,
perspiration. What's that?
Is that Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No, Think and Grow Rich. Right?
That's right. Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
Patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success.
Yeah. Well, I mean, while we're talking about thinking, growing rich, Warren Buffett, right?
Yeah.
He started investing at an incredibly young age, and his whole mentality was that buy and hold. Right. And long-term goal that we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
That is a prime example of patience.
And I guarantee before he got to the buying, he expressed a lot of patience, a lot of work, a lot of perseverance, right? In making those decisions. So he knew when he was holding something like gold. You know what I mean?
Right,
he was holding something that was going to have value long-term instead of immediate, quick, like an impatient, things that come through impatience.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some ways to become more patient, man.
Right.
So act number 3,
oh my God.
The payoff, the resolve, right?
I know, right?
So so let's start. What are some ways that we can develop patience? I mean, we all have it somewhere in our DNA, right?
How about you being patient with yourself? You want to be different in the world, get to know yourself. Best way to get to know yourself. Best way to start to get to know yourself is to get to know your breath. Because if you can control your breath, and you can just become aware of literally check yourself right now. How am I breathing right now? Is it short? Is it choppy? Is it an impatient breath almost? Like you're always waiting for the next moment? Is it deep? Is it deep? Is it calm? Is it relaxed? Right? That's going to keep you in that mindset. And then you also, by understanding and being with your breath, and there's several different breathing practices that that are available to just naturally and can be used in the moment to calm you down. Like you're just all that wonderful biology we've always talked about is going to be more available to you And
Right.
even like in that moment we talked about with John in our meeting today, like he came in a little hot, right? But then within minutes, he just calmed down and boom, brightened right up and came on. So it's not like it's, just because you start somewhere, it's just immediately ruined. It's like you have the ability to calm yourself down, but it's going to take some practice. I mean, you got to like know yourself, right, in order to get to regulate yourself. And the best way to know yourself is like get on the inside by finding that breath and just beginning to create. When I teach about the breathing, I like to think of like you're creating a relationship. The most powerful ally you will ever, ever, ever have, right, is the relationship to your breath. And that's where it all begins. And I guarantee all the leaders that we just talked about, they have in order to have patience, you must be grounded. And to get grounded is
gotta slow down, right?
You got to slow down.
That mindful decision making.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah,
go ahead,
and with that, you gotta slow down. That's why we do the breathing practice at the beginning of the show, right? Slow down. So learning to slow down, not just in a crisis, but slowing down all the time, so that when a crisis does hit, then you can still respond versus react.
Right.
The stop method that we've talked about before, STOP, stop, take a breath, observe, proceed.
Right.
So, and just think about that. How many times have you ever stopped, taken a breath, observed, and then proceeded, and the outcome was better than if you had just flown off the handle?
Right.
Flying off the handle rarely leads to anything good.
Right, right. And if it does, it's probably just pure fucking luck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just
exactly
pure
right.
happen circumstance. It's like,
Yeah.
I think another thing too, John, is like pause before you respond.
Oh yeah.
Like really listen patiently, instead of rushing to solutions or judgment or criticism, right? Listen patiently, really listen to what the person is saying. And then sometimes like just take a few seconds before you respond. Like, I was out last night and, we were getting I was on a date. We had some really good conversations and I was just, sometimes I just need to stop and just like, what's really being asked, in here. And then I just, and then I came out and it was fine. It was a good conversation, but I wasn't like rushy, and I think that rushiness comes from, we're just, you got to get grounded. And what does it mean to get grounded? And like, and we talk about it all the time in the show. It's like, feel your feet, feel your breath, be here now, like, practice to be more grounded all the time.
I'm gonna pause for a second.
You got it. Yeah. Okay.
Before responding.
Yeah. Go for it, John. I'm just gonna keep talking because I'm impatient right now. I'm just kidding.
No. No. I was just thinking when I was at the Naval Academy, there was a SEAL officer there, a Navy SEAL officer. So like I was a midshipman, wasn't an officer yet. This guy was an officer, was already a Navy SEAL. So we kind of look up to him, right? And I remember talking with him, and after every statement we made, or every question rather that we asked, he would always just sit there for like 5 seconds, maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
And on the receiving side, I was like, "Oh man, this is really uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. Why is he not answering?" And then he would answer, and man, his response was always so much more profound.
Nailed
he had
it.
thought through it. He had taken everything that we had said in and processed it, and then thought, "Okay, here's a response."
Yeah.
And man, as uncomfortable as that silence was, the message was so much better. And
right.
I have practiced that. I'm certainly not as good as he was, but I've practiced it when I have paused in between somebody finishing their statement or their question. And 99 times out of 100, my response is better. Yeah. And it's better received. So yeah, pausing.
Also, like when you do, when you pause, John, like that too, like you're pulling people closer to you. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of waiting for like, well, what the fuck? Like, why isn't he answering right away? So you pull people closer, and then when you come out with something that is actually thoughtful, right, and meaningful and heartfelt, right, like they're gonna be like, "Oh, John's amazing." You know what I mean? One thing that can maybe help to slow you down, right, is reflecting on your goals before you go to bed. Maybe I like to put things on my calendar to prioritize myself. So when I get going in the next morning, I know what I'm doing the next day. Like, and that's definitely a way that I help to control my energy, is just understand, like seeing the bigger picture, knowing my priorities, right? Scheduling myself the night before. So when I
Mm,
wake up, I'm not like all scatterbrained because it's like, oh my God, like, what am I doing right now? You know, or just
right.
go into the to-do list and just like, oh shit, like
That's
I just swim in, you know, but if I have the, if I, I've been really good at scheduling. It's like, all right, what's the, like the 4 or 5 things I got to hit today because
mhm.
of deadlines, because of this, because of whatever, you know, and just by scheduling them really helps to naturally calm and slow me down for sure.
Yeah, and not just scheduling those, but I think scheduling breaks, right? So
Oh,
many
hell
people
yeah.
schedule back to back to back
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been guilty of doing it
Me
myself and
too.
still, but the days that I schedule in breaks to, step out of the office, go for a walk, go walk my dogs, that clears my head and that allows me to be more patient. And then I'll check while I'm on that break. I'm like, okay, what's next? And that'll give me time to process and prepare. And by processing and preparing, I become more patient, which I just realized those are all P's:
Right.
preparing, processing, patience. Maybe I can come up
Yeah.
with some type of super list there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 3 P's.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that slowing down, breathing, using the stop method, finding the spaces in between a statement and a response,
Right.
and then reflecting on
Yeah.
your goals. I think those are great
Yeah.
ways to counter some of that impatience and
Uh,
practice that mindful decision making. So
yeah.
next thing is building emotional awareness.
Right.
Like
Right.
if you're not
100%.
aware that you're impatient, you're not gonna work on it. So let's
Right.
take a second and
Mm,
reflect on it,
mm,
right? Okay, I literally want you all as listeners to take a second and think about: are you impatient? Do you practice patience? And if you are an impatient person, what can you do to change that? And there's no judgment from, again, I can be very impatient and I try very hard. I'm very aware of it and I try very hard to change it. And clearly it doesn't always work. I mean, I showed up this very morning impatient, but
oh
then
no, it's all
but then
good.
I settled down.
It's all
But I mean, it's the old proverbial name it to tame it, right?
right. Yeah.
If we name it, then we can realize, okay, I am impatient. Now
Yeah.
what? Now I can tame
Right.
it, right?
Right.
Um, and then realizing, when you feel overwhelmed, maybe taking a step back and prioritizing. David and I, David is our senior advisor, business advisor, and we're doing a summit next week here in Colorado Springs
Oh yeah.
to kind of arrange things. And I I started putting together an agenda, like minute by minute by minute. Again, the officer in me was like, "Hey, we've got to have a plan." And Will's like, "Hey man, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We don't need how can we have an agenda if we don't know what the list is of things that we want to do?" And I was like, "Well, no, the agenda is the list. The list is the agenda. They're one and the same." And then I was like, "Wait a minute. How do I know how long addressing this item is going to take? How do I know how long addressing that item is going to
Right.
take? So why don't we just make a list,
Yeah. All right.
make a
Right.
list and
Yeah.
prioritize it,
All
and
right.
then go through it, go through it, go through it." And
Right. Right.
when I took a step back, I was like, "Oh, now I see what he's saying."
Yeah, I was like, the list is incomplete, John. Like, like, I mean, it all worked out. I thank
Yeah,
you
we
for
slowed
actually.
down, and when we
Yeah.
did, and when I
Yeah.
rather I slowed down, and
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
did slow down, I got that moment of clarity,
Oh,
and that slowing down, as an individual, that allows your team to slow down as far as mentally. Maybe that slowing down speeds them up, right? That slow is smooth, smooth is fast, but you
yeah.
don't have people constantly on them. And then I think slowing down, it's going to clear your communication. So maybe a way to improve your impatience, or rather change your impatience into patience, is one, slowing down, like we talked about before, taking those breaths, but then also asking questions, having that beginner's mindset that we've talked about on the show before.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Let your people ask questions. Let them.
Right.
Maybe not even just let them. Ask them to ask questions. Hey,
Right.
do you
Make
guys
it part of
understand what
your
I'm talking about?
culture.
Yeah. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you understand my priorities? Which do you want to know which thing that I've listed here to work on first?
Mm.
Um, rather than doing what I was going to say, jump to conclusions. And whenever I use the term jump to conclusions, all I think about is Office Space. I don't know if you remember Office Space, Will, but there's a guy on the show, on the movie. He wants to develop a jump to conclusions mat, and that's all I can think about. It's freaking hilarious. But and for you guys listening, you know what I'm talking about, the jump to conclusions mat. But rather, so asking those questions, clarifying those questions, rather than just jumping to conclusions.
Yeah,
So I think
right.
that's another
Yeah.
way to help to build that emotional awareness.
Yeah, I think
What
also
about
understanding
go
your
for it?
triggers, like what triggers your impatience.
Mm,
You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like,
yeah,
and this is part of like name those, like, understand those triggers. But like, in order to even become aware of those triggers, like that's when slowing down becomes really important. And that's when
mhm,
taking inventory and not judging yourself for being impatient or flying off the handle again. It could be helpful. Like, I mean, we have a really beautiful checks and balances, John. Like, you slow me down, I slow you down. Like, I mean, it just happens. But like,
yeah,
you surround yourself with good people that might help you, understand those triggers, or even, that's like part of the kind of the name what the triggers are. So when you're potentially stepping in that environment or in that particular situation, like the triggers might be there. And it's
mhm,
just like, and if you keep going into the same place over and over, it's an opportunity to practice not getting affected by that trigger and using, the stop method or using some breathing or some other way to mentally, physically kind of check yourself and slow down,
right,
and just like, but it's like, it's going to behoove you and benefit you greatly, to just understand, like, what are some of the triggers that create and like I had an example today. Like I went to the fucking bank, man, and that you can hear it. Like it was awful. Like it was
just in
just,
that statement, I can
I
feel
know,
your
dude. Oh my
impatience.
god, dude. It was just, my biggest trigger for impatience, and it was just like I was really trying to control myself as much as I can, is inefficiency and stupidity
Oh
and
yeah,
waste of time.
yeah,
I was like, "Oh my
incompetence,
god,
man.
incompetence." I'm like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
oh my
I
god,
hear, I hear
how
you,
am
I
I here?"
feel you.
And it's just like, and I tried. I didn't yell. I didn't do this, but I asked, questions, to the banker. I'm like, "What fucking year are we? Is it to, like what? Why am I here at the bank?"
And that
You know
poor
what I
guy,
mean?
it's not his
No,
fault.
I know, and I told him that too.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm just venting. I was like, anyway, it's just like that's one thing that really triggers me. I don't know. I mean, and honestly,
no, I
it's
get
a
it.
big trigger, but I just don't like to waste my time. Because
Yeah,
time is very precious. And those situations are very, very challenging. But I got to
but
watch
what did you
myself.
do? What did you
What
do in that moment?
I breathed, and I really, he had, we had to we had to do the goddamn thing like 3 times too. I'm like, oh my god, and I would just got really quiet, and I just sat there, and I try not to make a face because I get really facey and be like, you know what I mean? Like I just like, I just sat there.
Facey.
I know, really, like my mother. Don't you roll your eyes at me? I'm like, oh god, you know what I mean? So I just was like, I just sucked it up. And I just waited, and I'm like, okay, is it working now? But try not to be fucking facetious or fucking attacking. It's just the banker; he doesn't control the fucking thing. Um, but it was just, I just saw a lot of this stuff. I was just triggered, super. Like I haven't been triggered like that in a while. Like it
Yeah,
just, I just don't like wasting my time, and I don't like doing stuff that in 2024 that I think,
but it wasted
should.
time and money, man.
Oh, we lost
Yeah,
fucking money on the whole goddamn
yeah,
thing too, which is even more frustrating. Right now, you're making me more frustrated, John. You know, uh,
yeah.
so
But you were emotionally aware in that moment,
I
and that
was definitely
changed, right?
emotionally
So
aware, but
practicing that emotional awareness,
yeah,
mindfulness,
yeah.
patience.
And it's not even in that moment, John. It was not easy to control myself, but I
Sure.
did the best I could. What was moving through me at that time?
Mm,
You know what I mean? Even when I came out of the bank, I'm like, I gotta fucking tell John. Like, you leave a message with him, and then I'm like, I gotta get this out. I made a freaking Instagram story about it, like how dumb banks are. You know what I mean? Yeah, and now it's coming up again.
I'm gonna have
It's
to
like,
go check our Instagram.
yeah, I know, right? And I'm here. I'm like, I just gotta take a little nap. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, I gotta take a cold shower.
Well, hey,
You
man,
know?
I'm glad you just said that.
Yeah,
Taking a little nap.
take a step back, nap, whatever.
Well,
Yeah. Mhm.
how are you sleeping, right? And I'm not asking you
Yeah, yeah,
specifically, Will. And that's not even something that we have in our notes, but it's something that when you said it, it kind of made me think.
totally.
When you're tired,
Hmm.
you rarely have patience, right? I mean,
Right.
again, as a parent, we putting the kids to bed is like the biggest patience trial ever. One, you're already tired as a parent. You've been
Yeah.
working all day. Then you come home and you're taking care of the kids, and they're being kids. I adore my kids, but they're being kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
which takes energy from us. And and then when we put them to bed, and they're like, I don't want to go to bed, and I want a snack. Can you get me a bottle of water? Can you get my favorite stuffed toy? Can you do X, Y, or Z? And it takes forever. And then you finally get them down, and you start to walk out, and then like, Daddy, and then they ask you one more thing. You're like, oh my gosh. That is trying my patience because I'm so tired. But then the next morning, when I'm rested and I see those same kids, at least initially, before I ask them to put their damn shoes on.
There you go. There it is again.
Then I'm like, oh my gosh, these are my favorite people on the planet.
Right.
And the same thing can be, translated to work when you're a leader. If you're exhausted, if you're burned out, what are you going to do? You're going to have less and less patience for your people. You're going to have less and less patience for everything. And you think that they're not going to see that? They're going to see that. Yeah. So I think resting, whether it's sleep or not, whether it's sleep or, doing less at work, allowing yourself some breathing room in between meetings, allowing yourself some mental breaks where you can rest.
Yeah.
That's going to improve your patience.
I think physically as well, like moving stuff through you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would definitely have felt better if after the whole thing at the bank, I went right to the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like exercise or go for
huge.
a walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever it takes. Like, I've been doing more one-on-one work, and like, I hear a lot of stuff from my students, and sometimes things are going great, and sometimes there's situations that arise that aren't so great, and like, if they're like, oh my God, I remember the one even last week, one of my students was like, oh my God, this whole thing came up at work. I got to go for a walk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like, good for, he just knew, because he's practicing and doing the thing. He realized, like, instead of stewing in his stuff, he needs to move this through him, so that could be a great way, or even when you are walking, John, is what I would suggest. It really helped me here. I used to literally live in the New York Minute. Like I would rush around the city all the time. Like it was like the city, my first like 5-6 years was so incredibly infectious to me, to my mind, my spirit, that I would walk. My little brother came to visit me the one time. He's like, why are you walking so fast? We're like hanging out on Saturday night. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I was like, oh, you're right. And he helped me wake up, because he's my brother. He doesn't give a shit what he says to me, and he did it in not even really knowingly, just he woke me up. And then years later, as I started, deepening my practice and breathing more, meditating more, doing more yoga, and yoga was a big help too, because it's a flow, and it's not like it's a fast flow. It's not like getting to the next pose. It's like journeying through the whole entire practice. I just started to walk slower in the city. And when I feel like a rush of impatience, or I feel like, like the world, the pressure, or something like that, I deliberately start to slow down.
There you go.
Slow down,
Again,
like walking.
slow down, man.
Like slow down.
Yeah.
And that's an act of patience as well. And that's also a gift that you're giving to yourself, and then therefore a gift you're giving to everybody else.
Your team.
And your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think let's start to wrap it up. I'd like to wrap it up with just a pretty simple one. It's simple to say, but really difficult to actually implement. And that's a reframing. Like reframing patience, rather than thinking of it as inaction or weakness, reframing patience as a strength. Think about how much strength it takes to practice patience.
We just talked about it.
When's the last time you as a listener practice patience, and how much effort and discipline did that take to actually practice it? So when you see people practicing it, or when you practice it, know that is a strength. And if you can reframe it that way, I think that is a huge piece to practicing it more and instilling more patience in yourself and in your team. So I think that's the kind of the last action, if you will, is reframing it as a strength.
Right.
So
go back and listen to this episode, or like take a little piece that we had said and go out. It's not an idea. It's an ideal, but it takes practice to access and live that ideal. You got to go inside, and it's what's nice, like we said earlier, it's already in there. Just go get it by slowing the fuck down. Now I'm getting impatient about talking about patience. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's like we can have a
Hurry
better
up and
world.
slow the fuck down.
I know, right? I know. We can have a better world, everybody. We know this. We know this. We have been in situations, right? Or even think about those situations where you were more patient, how things worked out, or you were impressed by somebody's patience and look how things worked out. Look what it did to your team. Look at the people around you. Look at the ripple effect, right, of patience versus the ripple effect of always trying to rush and, you know, and the impatience and the anger and the fury and all the other stuff that comes up when we're jacked up on our, you know, the cortisol, adrenaline, feeling that pressure. Slow down again and again and again, and practice to slow down more and more and more, and just watch what naturally starts to happen.
Yeah.
It really makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I'll wrap it up with this before we do our grounding practice and say goodbye. You know, patience is one of the most underrated tools in the leader's toolkit. Again, I've seen patience in leaders, and I've had the utmost respect for them. And I've seen the reverse. When I haven't seen patience in leaders, I've had very little respect for them and trust. So, you know, if you're able to practice patience today, try it out. Try it out in one conversation, you know, one decision that you're making, or you know, one moment of frustration. Stop. The STOP, right? Stop. Take a breath. Observe. Proceed. And then remember that you know, that great leaders, they don't just act. They take a minute to reflect. They take a minute to act wisely, so that they're making the best decisions for themselves and for the team. So, you know, take your time. So this is where the tree analogy comes in, or the tree metaphor, which I mentioned at the very beginning, and now I'm only now bringing it up. But, you know, let your roots kind of grow deep there, and with those roots that are planted deep in patience, in taking time, in reflecting, you know, watch how that transforms you, how it transforms your leadership, and it transforms your life. So I'll leave it right there. And I'll turn it over to you, my brother, to do that grounding practice, and let's say goodbye.
You know, one way, let's just do the 4-7-8 breath, John.
Oh, perfect.
You know,
that's tied to patience, right?
Exactly.
That's right there.
Let's just do 3 of those, right? We're going to so you can do this. We're going to do 3 just for time's sake, you know, and not like we're rushing through, but like, you know, if you want to, like after we do the 3 breaths, you want to just pause and do 10 more, go right ahead. Simple recipe, right? But stick with the recipe. Right. And be patient with the recipe. Okay. You know, so we're going to in for 4, we're going to hold for 7, we're going to exhale for 8. Right. And it's a legit 4, a legit 7, and a legit 8. Right. It's not like I'm rushing through. Right. So, and just be patient with even the expression of the breath. Pull it in slow, let it go easy, or hold the breath with patience. Right. And just be in those 7 seconds of patience, and exhale patiently and slowly and let go. Right. So much you can exercise, and it's going to have these wonderful natural biological effects on you as well. So find that seat. You can do this, whatever. You don't have to sit down. You don't have to close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes. But let's just start with an exhale, and just slowly and patiently let it go out. Let's take that first inhale for that 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold gently. 7, 3, 2, 1. Like you're blowing out a candle through the mouth. 8, 7, 6. Slowly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big breath in. Pull it in. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7. Exhale. Easy. 8. Last one for us. Inhale. 4. Hold. 7. Exhale, let it go. Let all that impatience just go away through that nice, long, slow, deliberate exhale. And that's it, guys. You want to just do more of that, or maybe that's just your practice of patience. Do that every day for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. it's going to help you, right? I mean, it has, like I said, these biological effects, but it will help you and it'll make a difference.
There you
And
go.
we really thank you, everybody, for showing up here.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you for your patience, Will, this morning.
Nah,
And
they're
then
all good,
for
dude.
the audience, thank you
Yeah.
for your guys' patience with
Yeah.
us as
Yeah.
we may have gone long, but hey, maybe that was us and that was intentionally there so you guys could practice your patience.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I like to say that anyway. But hey, this is a great episode, Will. Love you, brother. Thanks for
Thank you,
doing what you
brother.
do with me and
Yeah, always.
for our audience. Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in. If you got something out of this, please share it with your family, your friends,
Yeah.
anybody else who you feel could learn to be more patient.
Yeah.
And until next time, take care, everyone. Peace.
Yeah. Peace, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.